Welcome to the Smart Factory Podcast, brought to you by Catalyst Connection, where every day we work to support manufacturers at the intersection of technology, data, and workforce development, turning today's factories into smart connected enterprise, powering the next generation of American manufacturing. This is the Smart Factory Podcast. But first, a word from our sponsors making this show possible.
Execution does not stop at your four walls. Even strong operations can fall behind if the supply chain is not keeping pace. KDL Logistics works with manufacturers to close that gap. From freight optimization and carrier management to real-time visibility and cost control, they help keep product moving without disruption. Learn more at kdllogistics.com.
As a manufacturer, you know energy and operating costs add up fast. But what if a grant could help you modernize your plant and save money? Reducing industrial sector emissions in Pennsylvania, RISE PA offers grants to manufacturers with fewer than 500 employees. Eligible projects can receive up to $500,000 to install more efficient equipment that cuts emissions and lowers utility bills. Modernize your plant, reduce costs, and strengthen PA's manufacturing future. Learn more and see if you qualify at risepa.org.
Welcome to Catalyst Connection's Smart Factory Podcast. I'm your host, Petra Mitchell. I have been exploring what it takes to transform a small manufacturer into a profitable, sustainable business. And so I asked Ralph Hardt, owner and CEO of Belleville International, to join me on today's podcast. Drawing on decades of global experience, Ralph shares his journey of acquiring and growing a manufacturing company where 80% of his new hires come from referrals. Ralph offers practical insights on scaling a business while staying focused on workers and customers. Hello, Ralph. Welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here.
So, Ralph, we only connected a few years ago, but I really wish it had been sooner. You've had this long and distinguished career in manufacturing. You've been a leader, an advocate. But we're here to talk about Belleville International, and your time there is a little bit more recent. So can you tell us about the company, its legacy, and what really drew you there? What drew you to the company?
Well, to be honest, I spent several years prior to acquiring Belleville having much extensive business travel. In fact, 2 million miles on Delta, over 1 million on American, and over 1 million miles on United. So when you hit over 1 million on 3 airlines, you've been traveling a lot. So I decided I wanted to try to do something to reduce such. So I simply put the word out that locally, if there were a small manufacturing business that might be available for sale, to let me know. I ran into the former owner of Belleville at a next year bank golf outing. We had a rain delay, and he told me he was considering selling the business, and we took it from there. My initial tour was very good. I was excited as to the manufacturing and market potential. And once I determined that there was also a potential for a good team to be formed, it made my decision even more focused. Within just a month or so after meeting, we had the initial agreement drafted. So it moved pretty quickly.
Ralph, there's so many good things that you said there in terms of looking at market potential, the team, working together to really help that company grow. Can you tell us, just to give us a perspective, what markets does Belleville serve today, and where do you see the greatest opportunities moving forward?
Well, we're a manufacturer of precision, but the key is mostly custom designed Belleville Springs. However, we also do much more. As to Belleville Springs, which is our majority product category, we've developed custom designed software to aid our customers. And we've focused primarily on high alloy materials, stainless, Inconel, titanium, and others. And we also have 3 processes we primarily use: stamping, water jet, and machining to produce our components. Several years ago, we extended our capabilities and products to include bearing races for drilling motors. And historically, we've always made a lot of springs for drilling motors, so it just made sense. And even more recently, we expanded our precision machining capabilities to include components for fluid, fuel, valve, and solenoid components required for space and aerospace applications. Actually, a lot of our components go on the rocket engines themselves. However, there's a common theme. I call it round with a hole in it. We're simply very good at such, using all of our capabilities, whether it's bar-fed, slug-fed, or machining. we've expanded to use multi-axis and live tooling, but still produce a lot of components that start out being round with a hole in them. So we found our secret sauce, and we've just maximized that. We tried not to go into areas that were outside of our core capabilities. We've doubled the company size in the last 2 years, and we're looking at about a 30% growth again this year. We're positioned to grow in several markets. The number one market is energy, a long-term focus. The world always uses energy, and nuclear is growing very fast for us on a global basis, actually. Probably growing more global than the US. A lot of global countries have adopted nuclear more than us. In aerospace, space, and defense, needless to say, there's a lot happening there. We don't just pick growth markets and focus solely on those. Several of our key markets are flat to stable, some industrial markets, valve markets. In fact, one's slightly declining. Therefore, diversification is highly important to me. At this time, not one customer is more than 10% of our sales, and no market is more than a third of our sales. So staying diversified is also important as to risk management, and we try to focus on that as we go.
Ralph, that's fantastic. Energy and defense are two themes. We've been talking to quite a few industrial leaders that are serving those markets, and there are quite, everyone is really talking about those incredible opportunities that those markets are providing. So I'd like to talk about that, except I'm just really intrigued by your comments about the travel that you've done in your career prior to coming to Belleville. I know you've had an impressive manufacturing career. Would you mind sharing some of those experiences? What led you to all that travel, and how did you really build this manufacturing competency and career that you've had?
Well, it's been a great career. I'll say that, and hopefully many more years to go. I started out my manufacturing career at a company called Oberg Industries here locally. Uh, they're local, but both sizable and very capable. During my tenure there, we aggressively grew our apprenticeship programs. We opened up a new operation in Costa Rica, and we built the Oberg Stamping and Technology Center just outside the main plant location. I ended my career there as president and CEO. And at that point in time, I became president of a global company called Fine Tool North America based in Switzerland. Fine Tool leads the world in precision fine blanking, tooling, and forming technology, all metal-based. It was a natural extension of my knowledge acquired at Oberg. Fine Tool is also a public company, so I received extensive experience as to international business during this tenure. I was a member of the global management team and traveled to many of our operations also in Europe, Japan, and China. In fact, during my time period there, I had 83 trips to Switzerland alone, there every month to participate in the global management team. It was a good time, learning experience for me as well, because I had to learn German because all of our communications were in High German. But it's also, Fine Tool is heavily involved in automotive, which can be a tough industry at times, to say the least, particularly during 2008, 2009, when GM and Chrysler both declared bankruptcy. During my time at Fine Tool, I became a board member of a company called Jagaman Stamping, Manitowoc, Wisconsin. The owner asked me to come on board as both an owner and president, so I did it. I took the chance to grow some equity. Jagam is a leader in deep draw precision stamping and related components, and we accomplished several acquisitions during my tenure, and also expanded into fine blanking, again, using my knowledge this time, what I learned at Fine Tool. Then I find Belleville, which we had already discussed. It met my goal of getting a bit closer to home and family. Something interesting, my drive time to Oberg was 19 minutes. My drive time to Belleville is 19 minutes. So I'm back in the area. I also mentioned that I have other interests I think that have been helpful in my business career. I've always supported our major national trade associations, and in fact became chairman of the Precision Metal Forming Association at one point. The PMA is a large organization of 1,500 metal formers across the U.S. with over a $10 million a year budget, so it's a sizable organization. And also been an owner of a local regional bank, Next Tier, also based in Butler, and have served on the board of directors for many years, which I think has helped me in planning the business as well from a financial perspective.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I asked that question, Ralph, because I had no idea of those experiences that you had, and I think there's probably a lot of follow-on conversations we could have about those experiences. But for this particular podcast, I'd like to talk a little bit more about Belleville. you've helped to transform the company into a modern, advanced manufacturing operation. I've seen you've made many investments in equipment and automation, connected systems. Could you walk us through that transformation and, what was that strategic vision and how did you execute on it?
Well, it was a multiple step process that I went through in analyzing things. The first step was evaluating the people we had, our capabilities, and near term needs. From a people perspective, we incorporated formal development and training plans in all performance reviews. Every person in the company has a formal development and training plan. And with such, we engaged in trainings from formal management training. We entered the NTMA apprenticeship programs with several people, certified apprenticeship programs, because when you think about any business, people and skills are our most valuable asset by far. Step two, I met with all key customers to understand how Belleville International was viewed and where it could possibly do more for them. I continue to do this today in order to help plan strategically where we should grow, adjust, change, or move to meet customer and market needs. I spend a lot of time with our key customers and key target customers to get a good strategic understanding of where they're headed. Hopefully, it can align to their needs. Third, I then reviewed all we did. And were we the best in class or not? And did we clearly offer value propositions to our customers? If we did not, we developed plans to address such. This was in all aspects of our business and even continues today. And it will always continue because we can always improve or be better at something. Four, we determined where we had equipment holes and capability holes. We had three areas we analyzed: deferred maintenance, second, productivity, and third, capability. Over the last several years, we've aggressively invested, with this year being our largest. Last year, we also added a second facility. Here, we focused on improving throughput, cost, and quality. Automation was a key aspect, and this is where we had some great success. And more to come, because if you don't embrace technology in manufacturing, it's hard to have sustained success. Manufacturing is a capital-intensive business, but you have to constantly invest to get where you need to go. And fifth, as we've grown, continue to turn over day-to-day operations to an increasingly skilled management group. My focus remains on growth. In fact, one of my key management representatives is currently involved in the OWN program at Catalyst Connection, doing very well. And then I follow a growth guide. It's part of the EOS management system, which we don't use totally, but it's a growth guide. And I have this guide or chart on my desk at all times. They call it the 10 rules of growth. I refer to it often when we're looking at something new or we're struggling with a bit of execution.
Ralph, that's a great list and a great approach that you've taken. I was jotting down some notes, and I feel like you've really given us the recipe here for business growth. I had some follow up questions that touch on several aspects of what you just addressed. And one of the biggest ones I think I'd like to ask you about is the capital. I know major modernization efforts do require capital, particularly in a precision advanced manufacturing company such as Belleville. So I was just wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing what those financing or investment challenges might have been. And in general, where do you see the biggest gaps for manufacturers that are trying to follow a similar roadmap to Belleville, in capital in particular?
Well, first of all, I think traditional lending is becoming better all the time for dealing with organizations such as ours. Many banks and other organizations are focusing a little bit more on what they call C&I lending versus commercial real estate. Um, I'm both an owner and a board member of our local community bank next year, and we've definitely done that. The first key to borrowing is having a solid balance sheet and cash flows that demonstrate you can pay back the debt. I've always been a believer in protecting the balance sheet, even at a sacrifice of growth or earnings. You can grow too fast and take on too much of your line of credit too fast and borrow too much money. So protecting the balance sheet is very important, and having a strong balance sheet that can survive a little bit of a downturn to keeping banking engaged. There's also organizations out there that will help you grow your business with subordinated debt. There's some local firms in town that will do that, come in and backstop you, or help get regular financing institutions more comfortable. And then you have the SBA and other private investment groups that can help you grow. My advice to someone that doesn't have the financial background totally needed would be to align yourself with a financial expert that can guide you as to what is possible, what you can do is to investing, and help you develop the sources and uses of funds for such.
Again, excellent advice, Ralph. Thank you. Um, Another area that you touched quite a bit upon was your workforce. And, I know that many companies struggle to train workers even just on one new technology, but you've introduced several, like you just described, an entire roadmap of technology and automation. How have you engaged your workforce in this transformation? And then I'd like to ask you, maybe a little selfishly on my part, how important has community support been along the way? I want to ask you, how have you partnered with outside organizations to help you in this transition, particularly when it comes to the workforce?
Well, first of all, most of our recruits, believe it or not, come from referrals, which must mean we're doing something right. When I think 80% of our new hires come from referrals. Second, we do use standard social media or internet posts where needed, but we don't use recruiters on a regular basis. We're able to do what we need through referrals and a regular route. Third, as I mentioned, which is critical, I mean, for every person in the company, is to have formal training and development plans. That sets the stage for continued personal development. And then we always ask their employees too, where do you want to be in 5 years? What do you want to be doing in 5 years? And hopefully we have a role within the company that we can help get them there. So that's a very important question. And we have a birthday lunch every year. In fact, every month. In fact, it's today for the people who have birthdays. And then I have dessert, shall I say, with the birthday personnel of the month. And I ask questions such as this: what can we do better with training? What can we do better with development? Where do you want to be? And we keep very good records there. Lastly, we push very, very hard, and we're trying to push it even more, a lean and continuous improvement culture. We feel that's very important to continue to drive the success of the company. Again, it's a big part of our culture, and this is something we're working on more and more. I also appreciate where we're located. Some may say, okay, you're in Butler, PA, you're out of the area, you're in the northern part of the state, but the reality is where we're at is on the upper verge of the suburbs to the upper verge of the rural area of the county. So we can recruit our technical and professional personnel that drive north versus south, and we can recruit our labor personnel from the northern communities above us very, very effectively. As far as workforce development, we've used multiple programs in the area. We've used the Workforce Investment Board. We've used WedNet in the community college. We've used Catalyst Connection, as I mentioned, and plan to do more there. And we use the local Butler County VOTEC. We just had a career fair at the VOTEC and had several students tour the shop. So we do a lot of outreach programs with the educators and organizations near us. And again, since we're a smaller manufacturer, we really rely on these organizations for training and education programs, not just for the basics, but for the changing and advancing technologies. For example, AI. There's no way a small manufacturer such as ourselves can learn everything about AI without having the resources. We hope that our partners don't forget the basics, such as math. It's very important not to forget the basics in training and developing our people. But to say it very simply, we need the resources and regional partners that we have out there to help us grow, because there's absolutely no way that we can do it all ourselves. And it's very, very important to us. I'll go back to my first point that people are our most important asset.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to reinforce that. And of course, Cal's connection is very strong in the people business, for sure. I'm just wondering, based on this long career that you've had, are you seeing any changes in the way people are perceiving manufacturing? Are you seeing, for a long time we talk about it's the perception of manufacturing that's preventing people from entering this field. Are you starting to see, have we moved the needle there? Just wondering from your perspective.
Yeah, I think we're moving the needle. I think historically many people might have viewed manufacturing just about running a machine. Okay, you're running a machine or you're moving parts, and that's what you do all day. And there's so much more required. You have to realize that within our company, we have people that find customers, quote projects, win and determine how to make the parts, account for all the financial items, human resource needs, maintenance needs, you name it. And even today, running a machine is more about running a process. It's really not loading and unloading parts. It's constantly using more and more automation, evaluating process capabilities. Quality roles are also more advanced than ever before, with advanced measurement systems increasing in function at a rapid pace. And there's so many other roles available, from technical engineering to quotations to sales, mechanical, electrical, and mechatronic engineers. And again, the growing use of automation and the maintenance of automation than ever before. In fact, maintenance to me is more skilled than ever as to the controls and electronics involved. A lot of people underestimate the needs for quality maintenance, and don't realize how it can affect their operations. Then finally, you have leadership. You have leadership roles in all aspects of what I just mentioned. And you have supporting roles such as purchasing, accounting, human resources, and again, using more and more advanced ERP systems all the time. So I think the biggest thing that I can say about manufacturing is just exposing people to what it all involves. It's so much more than just running a piece of equipment. And there's so much opportunity to grow and develop within a manufacturing company that you have as compared to, say, a warehouse company. In a warehouse company, you only have so many roles. In a manufacturing company, we have a plethora of available opportunities and growth opportunities. And so that's how I try to talk to people about looking at manufacturing or considering a career in manufacturing.
Oh, well, you've certainly described that very well, and I agree. There's so many opportunities in manufacturing. It's one of the reasons we wanted to do this podcast is to get that word out. So I want to just kind of wrap things up by getting back to your travel. I know you recently traveled to Washington, D.C. as part of the National Manufacturing Advocacy effort. And I was just wondering if you'd share with us, what were the key issues you were raising and how was that message received? We talked about workers and communities and leaders, but how's the public policy community reacting to the manufacturing message?
Well, I think we met with mostly senators and legislators. We did meet with the Department of Commerce as well on some issues. But our first focus was really on workforce development. Workforce development is coming up for refunding in 2027. All aspects. And we talked about MEP funding, competency-based apprenticeships, et cetera, and the importance of it. The current federal government has a vested interest and a desire to regrow manufacturing in the U.S. Well, we need a skilled workforce to regrow manufacturing in the U.S. And a more skilled one than ever to compete globally. So, for example, to use the growing tools that AI will offer as we move forward. So we really pushed workforce development and workforce funding very, very hard. The second was tariffs and the upcoming USMCA free trade agreement negotiations. China remains a concern, particularly with all they're doing and expanding into Mexico, trying to get around the current large tariffs. And we also need to get Mexico and Canada working with us better. And hopefully the president will work towards that goal. And the third thing we discussed was a specific tariff, perhaps I'll call it unintended consequences. But this is where there's tariffs on equipment purchases up to 25%. The reality is certain manufacturing equipment's just not made in the U.S. right now. It just isn't. I wish it was, but it's not. So therefore, it's kind of counterproductive to state you want to further grow U.S. manufacturing and make capital investments at the same time more expensive. So those were our 3 points. I believe everybody heard them well. I was surprised how well versed a lot of the congressional offices were on these topics already. So I'm hoping that they support the U.S. manufacturing initiatives that I just mentioned.
Well, Ralph, thank you for doing that on behalf of our community, on behalf of manufacturers and workers, and thank you for your leadership in manufacturing, and thank you for sharing all of that during this podcast. Thank you. I think you've provided us with an incredible roadmap and a really great case study for how modern manufacturing can grow and expand right here in southwestern Pennsylvania. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been great. And I hope that more of us do this in Western Pennsylvania because we have an unbelievable talent pool right here. I can tell you that one of my space customers, I won't mention who, has over a dozen suppliers in Western Pennsylvania alone. And we can do some amazing things here. I hope to keep it growing.
Thank you, Ralph.
That's all for today's episode of the Smart Factory podcast. Thanks so much for listening. If you found today's conversation valuable, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone in your network who's navigating the future of manufacturing. We'll see you next time. And before you go, a final word from our sponsors.
In manufacturing, the margin for error is razor thin. The decisions you make about technology, taxes, and operations don't just affect this quarter. They shape the next decade. Schneider Downs brings the deep industry expertise to turn that complexity into confidence. Big thinking, personal focus. At work for your business. Learn more at schneiderdowns.com/manufacturing.
In manufacturing, unexpected losses don't ask for permission. A single equipment failure, a liability claim, or a workforce gap can stop production, and your bottom line, cold. Henderson Brothers works with manufacturers who know that real protection goes beyond a policy. From property and workers' comp to cyber coverage and employee benefits, they build solutions around your operation, not a one-size-fits-all checklist. Personal, proactive, present. That's Henderson Brothers. Learn more at hendersonbrothers.com.